Hello, I'm Bill Lockwood, and this is what I call writing for the Bible brand. That is, we look at Bible passages and different ideas of the Bible and apply them to life today. And we are now in Hamilton, Texas, which is a beautiful place. We're at the Circle T Arena, kind of in the backyard of it. And I'm joined in this with my friend again, MC Hammer, upon whom I've shown this week. But I wanted to think about what the Bible teaches regarding death. You know, David said in the Psalms that precious is the Lord, or in the sight of the Lord, is the death of his saints. And I'm thinking about such a passage as that, where David had talked about that. And I wanted to look at what the Bible said regarding death. It's one of the realities, a sad reality of life, but nevertheless it's a reality. But from a biblical perspective, and only a Bible perspective, does it come to something that's what we might call a little more beautiful of a picture. Let's think about a couple of passages. One of them is in Luke chapter 9, and the verses are 28 and following, in which this is the scene of the Mount of Transfiguration, where our Lord takes with him, after 8 days, Peter and James and John, and he goes up onto a mountaintop and prays. And as he is praying, the fashion of his countenance is altered. His garments became white and dazzling. And there appeared with him two men, Moses and Elijah, who talked with him, who appeared with him in glory, and spake of his decease, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. And it's the word decease that I want us to think about here, because the word decease is referring to Jesus' death. But the interesting thing is that the word decease is from the Greek term, literally exodus, and it depicts what is death from a biblical, a godly perspective, and that is, it's simply an exit of my spirit from my body. Just as James tells us that the body without the spirit is dead, so is faith without works. That is, my spirit exits my body, and so they spake of his decease, his exit, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem, and that is the word decease. Peter uses the same term in 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 16, where he tells us, I've written these things that you might know after my departure, or after my decease, that you might be able to call these things to remembrance, after my decease. And the word decease is after my exit. That's what death is in the Bible. It's simply an exit of my spirit from my body, just departs from my body. And there are other passages in the New Testament that depict the same thing. Let's think about these two passages. One of them is in 2 Timothy chapter 4. This is Paul doing the writing. And the other one's in Philippians chapter 1. Once again, the same writer. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, he refers to death as a departure. The Greek term is ekbasis, which means it's literally setting a ship out to sea or out on the lake. It's just a calm picture of a boat pushing across a placid lake, leaving the dock. And that's exactly the word that he uses for his death in this passage, 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 6. Listen to what he has to say. I'm already being offered. The time of my departure's at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there's laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give to me at that day. Here we have Paul speaking about his departure, and his death is what he's referring to, and he uses that word, I'm setting out to sea. That means that my spirit is leaving my body. Once again, Paul, Philippians chapter 1 tells us he's in a Roman prison, and he's contemplating the fact that he's about to die, but he says to be here longer is probably better for you. That is the Philippian people, the Philippian church. But he says it this way, he said, I'm a strait, that is, I'm a quandary, I'm in a strait between the two. What? That is, between life and death. Having the desire to depart and to be with Christ, for it is very far better. But to abide in the flesh is more needful for your sake. And he uses the word depart. Same word, ekbasis, passing out of this body. Isn't that a beautiful and really a peaceful picture of a saint that simply leaves his body? It reminds us of what took place in Acts chapter 9 and the verses 39. Acts 9 and verse 39. Here, Peter has come to the house of Dorcas, Tabitha is her name also, and she's already died. She's already deceased. But it's interesting that her body was laid in state, and the people that were there weeping and her friends were showing Peter, who came to the house and who had resurrected from the dead, but they showed her the things that she had made, and the text reads, while she was with them. That's interesting, isn't it? Because the body was there in front of them, but she was no longer there. And that's exactly what death is. It's an exit from the body. Or here's another way that the New Testament speaks of death, and that is such as in John chapter 11, where Jesus tells the disciples, I'm going to Lazarus that I may awaken him out of sleep. That is, Lazarus lived in Bethany. Jesus was far away with his disciples. I'm going to go there to awaken him out of sleep. They said, Master, if he's asleep, he will awaken. Then later they discovered that he was speaking of his death, but he referred to Lazarus' death as a sleep. That is, the body sleeps in the grave. So exactly we have in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 13. I don't want you to be ignorant, Paul says, regarding those who have fallen asleep, that you sorrow not, even as the rest who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also that are fallen asleep in Jesus will God bring with him. Once again, a peaceful picture of death from a biblical perspective. It's not something necessarily that we long for, because as Job says, death is a king of terrors. It is something that, we anticipate, we recognize we all will die. That is, unless the Lord comes first. But at the same time, it is only the Bible, it is only the New Testament, Christ's Word, that gives us peace in a time of death. That's what I mean by riding for the Bible brand. We want the Bible. Let's ride for the Bible brand.